Right now, as you're watching this, a 28-year-old nurse in Auckland is booking a one-way ticket to Sydney. She won't be back. In the time it takes you to watch this video, 12 more young Kiwis will follow her. This isn't a crisis anymore. It's an evacuation. Every 23 minutes, another New Zealander leaves the country, most of them young. That's faster than it takes to watch a sitcom episode. By the time you finish this video, 3 more will be gone. That's not a metaphor. Imagine an entire generation slowly draining away, plane ticket by plane ticket, until the only ones left are retirees and tourists. The world thinks New Zealand is a paradise, but for the people who actually live here, it's becoming unaffordable, unsustainable, and let's be honest, unlivable. So why is the country bleeding its own youth? And can anything stop it? Every month, plane loads of Kiwis are vanishing. Not for a holiday, not for a gap year. They're leaving for good. In fact, New Zealand just clocked one of the highest net migration losses in its history. Tens of thousands gone in a single year. That's not a trickle, that's a flood. And here's the kicker. The very people who are supposed to keep the economy alive, pay the taxes, and maybe, just maybe, build a future here. Instead, they're packing their bags and saying good luck, mate. While I've been talking, another family just decided to leave. It's almost comical. New Zealand, the country sold to the world as the ultimate lifestyle fantasy. Breathtaking landscapes, clean air, friendly people, a work-life balance envied by the globe. Yet the reality, the dream lifestyle now apparently comes with a free one-way ticket out of Auckland International. Because paradise doesn't feel much like paradise when the rent eats half your paycheck, groceries cost more than a weekend trip to Bali, and wages crawl while everything else skyrockets. When did living in paradise become a luxury only tourists can afford? So what happens when your young workforce disappears? You lose your nurses, your tradies, your future entrepreneurs. You lose the taxpayers who keep the whole machine running. And worst of all, you lose the dreamers who actually believed in the myth of New Zealand. Picture Auckland Airport at 6 a.m. The international departures aren't filled with tourists. They're packed with 20-somethings clutching work visas, their entire lives compressed into 2 suitcases. The arrivals hall, mostly empty, except for tourists and returning retirees. But if this country is as perfect as the postcards suggest, why are so many people desperate to get out? And if you think that's depressing, wait until you hear what happened to Sarah, a teacher who tried to buy a house last month. Welcome to paradise, where the average house costs more than $700,000. In Auckland, try over $1 million. Yes, a single modest 2-bedroom box can set you back the price of an entire castle in Europe. And don't even think about comparing it to wages. The median Kiwi salary is around which means unless you're selling kidneys on the side, you're staring down a mortgage-to-income ratio that makes Wall Street blush. Imagine you're 25, earning your rent is $600 a week, after tax, rent, and student loans. For food, transport, everything. Your friend in Brisbane, same job, $400 rent. You too can own a home in New Zealand, if you're totally fine with 30 years of instant noodles, never taking a holiday, and praying your 1989 Toyota Corolla doesn't break down. Sounds dreamy, right? In the 3 minutes since this video started, New Zealand's population dropped by 1. This isn't just inconvenient, it's a generational lockout. Young people aren't just struggling to get on the property ladder. The ladder's been ripped up, torched, and used to roast marshmallows at someone else's beach house. Home ownership has gone from life milestone to rich uncle inheritance project. And when the so-called dream of owning even a tiny slice of your own country is impossible, you start asking the obvious, what's the point of staying? Because if you can't afford to live in paradise, then maybe it isn't paradise at all. But here's what nobody talks about. The real reason isn't just money, it's hope. When your own country tells you through every policy that you're worth less than a tourist dollar. And even if you somehow dodge the housing nightmare, good luck paying for anything with Kiwi wages. Because here's the truth, salaries in New Zealand haven't kept up with the cost of living. Not even close. A nurse in Auckland makes around that same nurse hops across the ditch to Sydney. Boom. Easily $90,000 plus. Same job, same skills, just thousands more in the bank for doing literally nothing different. While you've been watching this, another young professional just compared salaries online. Literally nothing different. While you've been watching this, another young professional just compared salaries online and started updating their resume. It's like playing life on hard mode in New Zealand. While Australia hands you cheat codes and bonus lives, groceries, rent, fuel, they all cost more here. Yet your paycheck barely budges. Try telling your landlord that you're being loyal to your country when the rent's due. Loyalty doesn't pay rent, it doesn't buy groceries, and it definitely doesn't fill up your car when petrol's pushing $3 a liter. How did the country that invented bungee jumping become too scary for its own youth to take risks in? Work harder, earn less, pay more. Meanwhile, your mates in Melbourne are saving for holidays, while you're debating whether heating your house this winter is a luxury item. And the frustration doesn't stop at wages, because in New Zealand, everything seems to cost more than it should. But wait until you see what a simple grocery run actually costs. Groceries in New Zealand feel less like shopping and more like a hostage negotiation. $12 for a cauliflower, $5 for a bottle of milk, and don't even start on avocados. You'd need a small loan just to make guacamole. This is the land of agriculture, the country that feeds half the planet. Yet locals can't afford their own produce. Imagine being surrounded by farms and still paying luxury prices for fruit and veg. It's like living next to the ocean and being charged for oxygen. New Zealand produces enough food to feed 40 million people. Its own citizens can't afford vegetables. A cauliflower here costs more than a Netflix subscription. Let that sink in. Entertainment is literally cheaper than nutrition. Then there's petrol. A tax hike here, a global shock there, and suddenly you're emptying your wallet just to get to work. Utilities, sky high. Power bills that make you consider whether candles might actually be a lifestyle choice. New Zealand consistently ranks among the most expensive countries in the OECD for basic living costs. And the irony couldn't be sharper. Paradise is priced like Monaco, but pays like Manila. Another 23 minutes just passed. Someone else is gone. So what do you do when just existing costs a fortune? You cut corners. You stop buying the nice stuff. You joke about instant noodles while secretly stressing about next week's bills. Who needs avocados when you can just dream about? And if you think surviving day to day is tough, wait until you hear about the debt trap waiting for graduates. For young Kiwis, the price of chasing a dream starts with a bill. Tens of thousands in student loans, handed over before you've even landed your first real job. And the repayment threshold, low enough that the government starts skimming your paycheck almost the second you clock in. Nothing screams welcome to adulthood like a lifelong financial ball and chain. Right now, a recent graduate is doing the math. Stay and pay, or leave and breathe. It's no wonder so many graduates look across the Tasman and think, why not? Move to Australia, earn more money, and bonus your student loan repayments stop while you're overseas. It's basically an unofficial government incentive to leave. Imagine working the same job in the same language, just with a higher salary and the sweet relief of your debt collector. Suddenly losing interest. Hard choice, right? When your own education system becomes a reason to emigrate, something's fundamentally broke. So instead of starting families, buying homes or building businesses, a whole generation is stuck just servicing their education tab. And the cruel irony, the more qualified you are, the deeper your debt hole goes. While I've been explaining this, another graduate just booked their flight out. But let's say you do claw your way out of the debt trap. You finally breathe. Your balance hits zero. Then what kind of future are you actually looking at in New Zealand? Spoiler alert, the healthcare system might just push you over the edge. Healthcare in New Zealand is technically free, if you don't mind waiting longer than it took to film the entire Hobbit trilogy. Emergency rooms are overflowing, GP appointments can take weeks, and nurses are burning out so fast they're leaving the country in droves. The irony, many of them head to Australia, where they're paid more, respected more, and don't have to juggle 3 wards at once just to keep the system afloat. Last month, a teacher named Sarah waited 6 hours in emergency with a broken arm. Her colleague in Sydney was seen in same injury, different country, completely different experience. On paper, New Zealand loves to brag about its public health system. In reality, the ratio of doctors and nurses to patients lags behind the OECD average. Translation: fewer staff, more patients, endless pressure. And when the people saving lives are too exhausted to stay, The whole system starts looking less like universal healthcare, and more like a lottery. Need urgent treatment? Hope you've got patience or private insurance. Another healthcare worker just decided they've had enough. That's 2 more gone while you've been watching. So yes, technically healthcare is free, but free doesn't feel like much of a deal when you're paying with your time, your stress, and sometimes your health itself. And if healthcare is crumbling, education isn't far behind. Universities in New Zealand love to market themselves as engines of opportunity, but lately they look more like cash registers, with lecture halls attached. International students paying sky-high fees keep the lights on, while local students scrape by with loans and overcrowded classes. Education here isn't about empowering Kiwis anymore. It's about selling degrees to the highest bidder. How did we get to a point where educating foreigners became more profitable than investing in our own future? Researchers, lecturers, entire departments are hollowing out because funding dries up and better opportunities wait overseas. The very people meant to train the next generation are updating their LinkedIn profiles for jobs in Sydney, London, or anywhere that actually values their work. In the time you've watched this far, another professor just accepted an offer overseas. So instead of fueling innovation at home, the system exports both knowledge and people. Ironically, education has become New Zealand's biggest outsourcing program. Except it's not products leaving the country, it's the talent, which leaves a depressing question hanging in the air. If students, nurses, and researchers are all packing up, who's actually left to run the country? The answer might shock you more than anything else. New Zealand is running out of people to actually run New Zealand. Agriculture can't find enough workers to pick fruit. Hospitals can't staff their ward. Tradies are booked out months in advance because there simply aren't enough hands on the tools. Add an aging population to the mix, and the math looks brutal. Fewer young workers, more retirees, and a country struggling to keep the lights on. Picture this: orchards with fruit rotting on trees because there's nobody to pick it. In a country that exports food worldwide, here's the jaw-dropper. About 1 in 6 New Zealand-born citizens now lives overseas. Think about that. Entire towns of potential nurses, teachers, builders, and engineers gone. It's not just a brain drain, it's a body drain. That's like the entire population of Wellington just vanishing. And sure, the sheep still outnumber people by a wide margin. Cute fact for tourists. But the reality is darker. Even the people who stay are outnumbered by the jobs left unfilled. Employers are desperate, productivity stalls, and the economy limps along while Australia snaps up New Zealand's best talent like it's a weekend sale. Another 23 minutes. Another departure. The countdown never stops. The country isn't just losing workers, it's losing momentum. And yet when faced with this hollowing out crisis, what's the government's master plan? Brace yourself. It's mostly PR campaigns, slogans, and a healthy dose of denial. But here's where it gets really insulting. Here's the cruel twist. It's not that Kiwis don't want to work, it's that Australia makes a much better offer. Higher pay, lower taxes, better infrastructure, and yes, believe it or not, housing that's actually cheaper relative to income. Imagine telling a young Kiwi, you can buy a decent house in Brisbane for less than a shoebox in Auckland. No wonder the migration stats are brutal. Tens of thousands of New Zealanders cross the Tasman every year, and the flow isn't slowing down. Right now someone's comparing house prices between Auckland and Brisbane. Guess which way that decision's going. This isn't a brain drain, it's a brain upgrade. One short flight, same language, same culture, double the paycheck. The choice is so obvious, it's almost insulting to call it a choice at all. When leaving your homeland becomes the smart financial decision, what does that say about home? In Australia, they've structured their immigration system to hoover up Kiwi talent. Nurses, tradies, engineers, offering stability and salaries that New Zealand simply can't match. Meanwhile, back home, politicians act surprised every time another plane leaves. In the past hour, 2.6 more Kiwis made the jump. Not a guess. That's the statistical average. So yes, Australia has become the great Kiwi magnet. But here's the bigger question. If the cousins next door already look this much better, what about the rest of the world? The answer reveals the ultimate irony of New Zealand's crisis. New Zealand still looks perfect on a postcard. Tourists flock in, wide-eyed and grinning, to snap selfies at Hobbiton, hike pristine mountains, and gush about how magical everything feels. And sure, it is magical if you're here for 2 weeks and then fly home. But for the people who actually live here, The story's a little darker. Imagine watching tourists Instagram your country while you're calculating if you can afford to stay in it. While tourists post their filtered sunsets, Kiwis are sleeping in cars because rent is impossible. Families juggle multiple jobs just to keep food on the table. Young workers are booking one-way tickets out, while foreigners book return flights in for vacation. It's almost poetic. New Zealand has become the perfect holiday destination, just not a sustainable home. The same beach that's paradise found for tourists is where locals park their cars to sleep. It's a wonderful country, people say, as long as you don't actually try to live here. That's the contradiction. Paradise for visitors, a nightmare for residents. How did paradise become a place you visit, not a place you stay? And if the exodus keeps going, if the workers, taxpayers, and dreamers keep walking out, what happens? Because a postcard is beautiful, but you can't build a country on a postcard. The future scenario is scarier than any housing price. Fast forward a few decades and New Zealand starts to look less like a country and more like a retirement village, with stunning views. The youth are gone, the workforce is shrinking, and the tax base collapsing. OECD projections already warn of a demographic crunch, an aging population without enough young taxpayers to fund pensions, healthcare, or even basic services. It's the fiscal equivalent of trying to run a marathon on one leg. By 2050, for every retiree, there might be just 2 workers. The math doesn't just not add up. It's a countdown to collapse. The brain drain compounds it. Every graduate nurse or builder who leaves isn't just a number lost today. They're future families, future taxpayers, future innovators gone forever. Meanwhile, those who stay behind shoulder heavier and heavier costs, stuck propping up a system that looks less sustainable every year. Another young family just made their choice. The future just got a little emptier. Picture it, a country famous for sheep and scenery, running on imported labor and nostalgia. The Kiwi dream reduced to pensioners, sipping tea while scrolling through Facebook photos of their grandchildren, who now live in Sydney, London, or Toronto. When your biggest export becomes your own children, you're not a country anymore. You're a departure lab. So the real question isn't just about migration, it's existential. What does paradise even mean when its own children are desperate to escape it? In the time it's taken to watch this video, 12 more young Kiwis have left. That's not a statistic, that's 12 dreams that couldn't survive in their own homeland. The fixes aren't mysteries. Build affordable housing, pay competitive wages, fund healthcare and education properly, make staying feel like a choice, not a punishment. But every 23 minutes without action is another young person gone. Because you can't pay rent with sunsets, you can't raise a family on scenery, and you can't build a future if your brightest minds are already gone. The saddest part, the young Kiwis leaving aren't angry, they're just tired. Tired of fighting for a future in a country that's already sold it. They still love New Zealand, they just can't afford to anymore. And unless something changes, paradise will still exist, but only as a postcard. A postcard nobody can afford to return to. Right now, another 23 minutes just passed. Another plane just took off. Another piece of New Zealand's future just disappeared into the clouds. The question is, how many more can this country afford to lose before paradise becomes nothing more than a beautiful empty shell?